So during this pandemic, we learned a couple of lessons, that there were two driving forces. I'm not going to take up too much of your time, but Mike called me and said to me, George, would you mind kind of saying a few words about the importance of data? And I gave it some thought over the last couple of days. And instead of re-engineering a piece of content that that was bespoke for this session, I thought, well, why not kind of bring you up to speed with where we think the world is, and just give you some food for thought or thought starters. So this is quite a long presentation, and I'm not going to spend the 45 minutes to an hour presenting it the way I probably would have. So I'm going to skip over quite a few of the parts, but I'm going to touch on some of the things that I think are important, and really they're designed as thought starters. All of the reports and data that we have, you can freely download at reports.autotrader.co.za, and if you need anything for your particular OEM category, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to share data with you on your particular OEM category. It's no problem at all. So go and download those things. So this is really thought starters, and to some degree we are fortunate, some of us, to be in control of some of these elements. Some of us are less in control of these elements, but nonetheless, if you have any influence over the direction of your business in its current environment, whether control or influence, and both of those are at play, I think it's an important thing to think about some of these things. So let me share my screen. How do I do this? I don't usually use Microsoft Teams, so screen number 2, I think it is. Let me know you can see that.
We can see, George. Thank you.
Good. You can see a single slide saying the importance of data in the automotive industry. Yes?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. All right. So, let me start off by saying that, while AutoTrader is a corporate profit-seeking entity, just like everybody else in this room, there's one thing that we all have in common. And that is that we should try and ensure that our automotive industry and economy in South Africa particularly continues to grow. We're all bedded down in our livelihoods in South Africa. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not running off overseas. I'm invested in South Africa, and I will continue to be invested in South Africa. So I'll start off with the word that I'm going to end off with, and that word is solidarity. My commitment is to use my voice and the amazing platform that myself and my team have been able to build, called AutoTrader, for as long as possible, to make sure that our industry survives and thrives. And that is one of the underlying things that we try and do on a regular basis is yes, we can all chase profit, and yes, we can all, but at the end of the day, if your heart's not in the right place, profit's not going to be enough. So I'd like to start off with that message, and to kind of kick off by saying, we all know it's mobility unusual. The future is uncertain. COVID-19 is now a thing that we're all used to. I grew up in South Africa. I went to a school in Cape Town, a primary school in Cape Town called Zonnekus Primary at the time. Now it's called Milnerton Primary, and then I moved to Johannesburg, and I grew up with most of my teen years in Joburg. But my life story is being a techie. At the age of 9, my dad bought me this Commodore 64. If you're in your mid to late 40s or maybe even early 50s, you will remember the Commodore 64. I learned to code games because at that point in time, you didn't get games that you could load as a 9-year-old. You had to code the games in order to play them. So later on in my in my life. I took my mother's computer apart several times a week, tried to put it back together, and I think that gave me my love for technology. I've been very fortunate to travel the world, meet interesting people, attend interesting events, but more importantly, learn and be mentored by very, very influential people in the world. I've got a very close relationship to the gentleman on the right. His name is Chip Perry. He founded the very first AutoTrader, AutoTrader.com, the biggest one in the world. Last year before lockdown, I was fortunate enough to go and stay in his home for 4 days, and he took me on a tour of his toys, which is classic Porsches. He's got a garage full of classic Porsches. So, I've been very fortunate in my career to be able to do that. The guy in the center is Dale Pollock. He pioneered the valuation platform that is called vAuto in America, and a large portion of what we learned there, we put into the back-end panel that dealers use today in order to value cars. But I couldn't have done it alone. I've got a team that was 300 people and is now down to about 130 people. And one of the bedrocks of any business is people, and we will maintain that particular thing, I think, way into the future. We're not made of computers. We're made of people in the world, and that's the most important thing. So the last 16 years, it's been very interesting, and digital innovation and transformation has been the story of our lives, to the point now where AutoTrader has 76 million pages opened a month. We've got over 10 million visits, and we distribute 500,000 leads to the market. And we are 30 times bigger than we were a decade ago. Now, I'm saying that not for any other reason, but to tell you the importance of data. And I'm getting there, and that's why I'm going so fast through this particular piece. So during this pandemic, we learned a couple of lessons, that there were two driving forces. There were macroeconomic forces, which we're all subject to, but we also noticed that in these macroeconomic forces and the 5% plus decline in new car sales, that there was a consumer mind shift. And I think the biggest message here is the data showed us that consumer mind shift happened so fast that we battled to even keep up. It was literally during lockdown last year, overnight, how consumer behavior shifted. But that's probably not the most important part. The shift back in consumer behavior, or should I say the shifts after lockdown, were even more significant. But I don't think it's the shifts that are important. It's more the speed of the shifts that are important. And the only way we realized or recognized these shifts was because of data. So at the moment, we sit on a platform that is growing at more than 50% year on year. Obviously last year, March and April, we didn't grow because people were out shopping for food, and we thought we would be living in dungeons, but we've been growing significantly, and we're very fortunate, and I'm very humbled by the growth that we've seen. And consumer behavior continues to shift. We've got insomniacs on our hands. People are searching for cars between 11 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, if you as a business knew that, how would you change? If you knew that piece of data, like how many people are searching for a car of your brand at midnight, and how are you responding to that at midnight, not making the consumer wait till 6 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning? And I'm not saying a human being needs to necessarily reply, but the fact of the matter is consumers very quickly change, and the data is the only thing that tells us where these changes happen, and it tells us very quickly. We saw buying down trends. We were able to really get a handle on that very quickly. We saw an increase and spike in armored car searches. We got a handle on that very quickly. That came back down to normal levels again. And so I'd like to suggest that these changes were happening anyway. Lockdown just forced the compression of these changes. And our digital innovation curve as an industry has shifted.